Hey there, Jamie. It's another podcast day.
Good morning, Jeffrey.
How are you?
Why is it that this music makes me want to call you Jeffrey?
I think it's
but
just...
I love it. It's peppy, and I'm like, Jeffrey.
Thanks, hon. I appreciate that.
Welcome to our podcast.
Welcome to the podcast, fellow streakers. You have been listening for the last two podcasts to our interview with Mauree, and it's just been amazing. I mean, I've listened to it a couple of different times just to hear what she was saying.
To take it all in. It's like it takes a little bit of repeat to be like, oh, that was really good.
Yeah. To soak in what it was that she was actually saying. And there's still one more segment that we have here.
I know. And this is fun because it's interesting as we went back and listened, she brought something to the table that we did not totally understand.
Had no idea what she would,
None.
And didn't ask.
I know. Note to self. Okay, this would be a good streak. I'd have to think about it. I'm just saying this off the cuff, but I would like to get better at not being afraid to ask a question when there's something that someone says in a way that the way that it's being said, there's like this understanding that like, oh yeah, you totally know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, I have no idea.
I have no idea. Inside,
about.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Like,
but on the outside, I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, completely.
I completely agree with whatever it is you're saying because I have no clue what it is. I wish I had asked the question.
I agree. And what it did for us is because we didn't ask the question is we had a chance to go back and study a little bit. And that's what we're going to do is set up this last section. Now, it's going to take us a few minutes to set up this last section. So you're going to be with us for about
half of it.
And then we'll listen to the rest of the interview with Mauree through the end of the podcast. So in setting it up, one of the subjects that we're talking about this month is luck and how to make your own luck and what it is you do to make your own luck. And we're going to continue that after the podcasts with Mauree. Not that we haven't stopped it, but
we'll continue. One of my favorite things is I'm just going to take a little tangent here. I love that part of the reason we're talking about luck is that we celebrate St. Patrick's Day in the United States, and the color that goes along with St. Patrick's Day is green. And I was thinking about it, and I thought in the United States and maybe other places, green in traffic lights represents go, that it's okay to go.
Ooh, I like that.
And I was thinking about it, and I thought, that's what I am enjoying as we're talking about streaking, is that streaking is the green to go. It's like, yeah, go ahead and go.
Start. It is the go.
It's the start. And so making your own luck, part of it is, well, go on the green, get started.
Exactly. And I want to go back to what you were saying about asking questions. Making your own luck is not being fearful about having a little bit of ignorance and being humble about it and being able to ask the question. There's so many people who I've met that I respect and are so wonderful that are not afraid to ask a question or to reveal their ignorance.
Exactly. In fact, some of the people I admire the most are not afraid to ask questions. And part of that question reveals that you're genuinely interested in what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
And that you don't assume that you know everything and you just move forward, but that you are like, I'd like to talk about that a little bit more. I'm going to ask that question that I have, that level of curiosity.
You just said the thing I was thinking, the curiosity that I have and the natural curiosity to go after it and my intent to learn and to grow and to understand, which leads us to what Mauree is going to bring up, and you're going to hear this. She talks about a study by a professor. His name is John Hattie. And
how do you spell it?
Hattie, I believe it is. Hold on, let me just take a look at it. Yeah, John Hattie, John Hattie, Hattie.
Okay.
And John Hattie, can I just give a little bit of background on this?
Yes, please read about
this. Because you and I were talking about it, and I kind of dove into it and started to look at it.
Which I appreciate because I've listened back to the conversation with Mauree and thought, I really did not understand what she was saying. And I'm grateful that we've had the opportunity to kind of look at this deeper because it was significant.
Well, and that was just it. We didn't appreciate.
We did not appreciate what she was
saying. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background as we're about.
And people, you haven't heard it yet, but this will help you understand what she says when she says it.
Exactly.
And you'll hear us be like, oh yeah.
As if we knew.
As if we totally were like, oh,
well,
that's
now
good.
we have a little bit more knowledge.
Yes.
So John Hattie, it's called the Hattie Ranking, 252 influences and effect sizes related to student achievement.
So again, focusing on education. This study was all on education and the effectiveness of education and how can we be more effective in education. And so say that again. The study was...
It's 252 influences and effect sizes related to student achievement. So how a student
Okay.
achieves, how you get a student to achieve, what are the influences and effects that get that student to achieve?
So I actually were able to study and measure the different things and say this has this level of effect and this thing has this level of effect. That's amazing. Okay.
He calls it, and the website I'm at is visible-learning.org. And this is, I believe, his website or the researcher's website that it is. And it says, John Hattie developed a way of synthesizing various influences in different meta-analyses. Now, I looked up meta-analyses, and that is bringing together a whole bunch of scientific studies so that you can consolidate the data together and get a ranking or an understanding. To their effect size. So how effective were they, the effect size? And he says in his groundbreaking study of visible learning, he ranked 138 influences, this one expanded to 252, that are related to learning outcomes from very positive effects to very negative effects. Hattie found that the average effect size of all interventions he studies was a 0.40. Now, that's one of the things you're going to hear Mauree say, is that the hinge point is a 0.40. What that means in the study is that as you go above 0.40, that has a more significant impact on positive student achievement, and as you go below, that has a less and even getting into a negative impact on student achievement. Okay. So hopefully that gives a little bit of the backdrop, because it has the ranking on this website of all of these different influences or effects and influences, and I'm not going to give you number one right up front. I'm going to give you some of the ones that I think we all hear about, right? So, for example, if you think about some of the things, classroom discussion. Okay, have you heard of that one before as something that has a positive effect? It is, right? Effort. All right, another one. Yeah, effort. Mnemonics.
Okay. I've studied that a lot with dyslexia.
Deliberate practice.
That one we hear about all the time.
In business and everything else, we've got to be deliberate in our practice. Reciprocal teaching.
I've heard about that one a lot too. That the best way to learn is to turn around and teach the thing. So yep.
Feedback.
Feedback is huge. One of my streaks.
Let's see here. The other one I wanted to look at. Let's see here. Learning goals versus no goals.
Okay, so
all right. Now we talk
goals.
A lot about goals, right? Okay, so those are a few of them, and that's just a few in this list of 252 or 250. What did I say? How many were there? 252. Yeah, 252. And remember that. So he gives each one of them a score, and the score, the hinge point of the score is at 0.4.
Right.
So anything above a 0.4, anything below. So now just take a guess here. All right, and I'll ask this of everyone just as you think about it. Deliberate practice, one that we all know and have heard. Where do you think it's at in the ranking from 1 to 252? Where do you think it's at?
I think it's high.
Number 17.
Okay, so it's high, maybe not as high as I was thinking.
Reciprocal teaching that we just talked about, number 27.
Oh.
Feedback, 32.
Okay, so these ones that we're hearing about, they are high in compared to 252. They're up there, but they're not as high as I would have expected.
Right. So let's give you number one, because we're about to get into the interview with Mauree. You ready for number one? Number one of everything with a 1.57. So 0.4 is the hinge point. This is 1.57. I don't know what statistical difference that is.
It's significant.
But it's significant. Collective teacher efficacy. Now, we had to look up what is collective teacher efficacy.
What is teacher collective efficacy?
Yeah. And it's a teacher that believes, a collective group of teachers that believes they can make a difference.
That they can be effective.
That's number one.
Effect.
Number two is self-reported grades. Number three is teacher estimates of achievement, and that is also teacher belief in the student.
In the student. So
the top three are all about belief. And what you're about to hear is Mauree talk about how streaking gives you the belief.
And the proof of this data that the belief makes a difference.
Makes a huge, huge difference. And that's what she says, is that if I believe I can make a difference in a child's life, then that has the most impact of everything that you could possibly do on student achievement.
That's amazing.
Is that just fascinating?
Yeah. So we're going to talk, and so I'm glad we had the chance to kind of prep this, because she uses this study and these numbers impressively. This is something she's been studying and says that she's super interested in. And the number one thing is this belief that I, as a teacher, am going to have effect. A group of teachers believing in themselves that they're going to have an effect on these students is the number one thing that makes a difference.
All right, so here we go.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I agree, Jamie. And what's interesting is there's a lot of research out there, which I'm very interested in, that one of John Hattie's, he has like a hinge point of if it gets to a 0.4, that's like more than a year's growth, anything over 0.4.
Okay.
And collective teacher efficacy on that is 1.57.
Wow.
So if you can like build that teamwork and that we are accomplishing a goal together, and we believe that we are the most powerful people in that child's life, I think we can do amazing things.
Yeah.
And that's what we're proving that by streaking. And so that's why I love it so much, is because I just think it's the proof that we are the most powerful people in these children's lives.
Right.
We can make an impact that we have no idea where it will take them.
And the amazing thing is you use the word amazing, which is a big word, but it's so awesome that it's done through a small, simple thing that's done consistently. And that's because that was the same that I felt with reading to the boys. I'm like, I have read so much research that says the profound effect that reading to your children can have. But getting it to happen can be hard. And knowing that these things need to happen, we've got the research out there. And I just love that this amazingness happens through small, consistent effort. So it's not so overwhelming. It's just, okay, we just keep doing it. And we're okay that some days we read 30 or 40 minutes for read aloud, or we go more on our math facts. And then other days, maybe we only did do one fact, and maybe we did just read a paragraph. But the simpleness of that propels the consistency and allows for that growth to continue happening.
Yeah, I love there's some psychology in the simpleness.
Yep.
I think setting a simple streak, there's power in simple.
Yep.
And I think that's what we need to remember, is that the power is really in the simpleness of the streak.
Yeah.
It's what empowers that consistency. Makes us, it turns that little switch that says, okay, I can do that.
I think and what it does, and like you said, powers the consistency, because if I look before we talked about and uncovered the laws of streaking, before that, I'd try to be consistent, but I'd set something so big that there was just no way I was going to be consistent in it. I'm going to write, 3 pages a day. There was no way that I could do that, and I was setting myself up for failure. And as soon as I failed on day 3, I beat into myself that I'm a failure. I just can't do these things. But when we flip that on its head and say, no, do the laughably simple thing, at least the laughably simple thing every single day, keep a record that you did it. And the other thing I was going to say that I love that you did it with law number 3 is you've now created a community that is massive. I mean, you've got a classroom community, you've got a school community, a teacher community, parents are joining in on this. That is one of the areas where all streaks live within a community. When we recognized that and saw what it would do to unlock the power of celebration, because a lot of times people look at the community as punitive or accountability, not the community, but the accountability as
the
punitive.
Community becomes, we've got to hold them accountable.
Right. And that's not it at all. The community, what your kids do and what you do is you celebrate these awesome successes. Like for example, I think you hadn't quite hit 100 days on your streak of math facts when we got your email before. But you've since hit 100 days? Where are you at on your streak?
We're on day 89 actually.
Okay.
4-day work weeks.
Okay.
I have students, I Zoom with them on Fridays. So I just count. And that was another key in the streak for me, is to just do something that I'm in control of.
Yep.
And I'm in control of the days that they're in class.
Right.
And so I felt like that was my way of just like, this is what I can do. So yeah,
I love that.
We're on 89, but we're anxiously working on our 100.
Yeah, 89 is awesome though. I mean, as a class, you've been streaking math facts for 89 days.
Which is just so, I just find that empowering.
Yeah.
I really do. I really do.
So what do you see? So now, one thing I wanted to loop back to. So you had mentioned, so do you report the streak to the parents, or what does that look like as far as parent communication?
Well, I mean, we have parent conferences a couple times a year. So my students have like a binder that they take home with some samples and records that they've kept, and that I add to it. So they show they can take that folder home at any time to show their progress. But parent conferences especially, they'll take that home and show, their growth.
That is so great. That is awesome. Did you have another question?
Well, I was just thinking that I love that actually, I totally forgot what I was going to say. Keep talking.
you were almost there.
It was
you
there.
were coming
it's
around
this
to it,
thought
James.
That's been in the back of my head, and it'll come back to
It'll
me.
come back to you. All right. So let's we're coming up on the wrap of this conversation, which I'd love to keep it going for a lot longer. But let me ask you a couple more things here. As you went through, you've described some of the challenges and some of the places where you had to tweak it or look at it a little bit differently, in the sense that, for example, and I absolutely, we look at streaking as it's either a daily streak, a weekly streak, or a monthly streak. And what I hear you saying is, you know what, in a week, I've got the students for 4 days, and therefore that's our streak. We're going to do this at least 4 times in the week, and that's when I have
every
them,
day that
every
I
single
have
day
the
that I have them.
students.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. So
Me too.
the question that I have a couple more questions for you. One, and you touched on this a little bit, but I'd love to get a little bit more of your thoughts. Does streaking have a future in education? And if so, how do you see that?
Well, I think it starts with one class. So
Yes.
that's basically what I've found out this year. Is I've kind of experimented with my own class to see if it will work, and it's working. And I'm seeing progress, and I'm teaching things that I thought, I don't know if they would get at the beginning of the year, but I'm teaching them, and I've got all these kids really mastering concepts, and I'm looking at their percentages on math facts, and I'm seeing correlations. And so I think as educators and in life, we need to look at, what can I do? Like, be really intentional and purposeful in choosing a streak to make sure that you're going to really get the benefits that you want.
Yeah.
So I think I'm kind of like you, Jamie. I like to think a lot about a streak before I jump in and say I'm going to do it.
Right.
I'm totally like that. But I think in some ways, when you're doing it as like the leader of a streak or an organization or whatever, you need to even be more intentional to make sure that this is going to get you the results that you want, because it will give you the results you want.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
if
so
you
great.
can get everybody going. So I think we're just the beginning. I think I can see it taking off. I'm excited to see where it will take our school, because as teachers, we're seeing like, if we did this next year and all of those kids were coming to us already having done it the year before, and that we're building on someone else's success, like there's just power in that to me. Right. And I think it creates like a team effort that we know as teachers and as educators, we're all building on what these are our kids, because those kids that are in my class, they're going to spread out and go to different other teachers next year.
Right.
And, so it's what each of us are doing can lift and build what follows. So that's my hope, is that's where it will go.
And part of that community, I think the other thing that's amazing as you were talking that I was thinking about is that it tweaks the thought a little bit in the kids from the mundaneness of having to practice your math facts every day to this effort of, well, how long it kind of gamifies it. How long can we do this? How long could we keep this streak alive? And then in the process, you are just again and again and again reinforcing those math facts in such a simple way. And so I could just see how and that's what I think has been profound for me, is that it's given me a place, streaking has given me this place where these things that I've read or researched or knew I knew and believed that they were true, but I was struggling to figure out how to implement them. It gave me a place to start and a way to keep going. And it changed it. And like you said, the simplicity of it, it somehow just, it gave me this ability to, I don't know if just get started, get over the hump. I don't know what it is that I would call it, but this place where you're like, okay, I can start this because it tweaked it just enough that I'm not so focused on, oh, I've got to study my math facts. It's, we've got this streak and I want to keep it alive. I don't want to lose it. And I think there's some profoundness there that kids especially get excited about.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things that Jamie says is she says it tweaks your thinks. Tweaking your thinking.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it does. It tweaks your things. Well, Mauree, this has been a just absolutely spine-tingling conversation. We are so happy that we were able to connect with you and also to talk with you about streaking in education, but also streaking in your personal life. So last question, are you considering some more personal streaks? Are those on the docket? Are you thinking about a couple other things?
Yeah, I have. I even think like as I start a new school year, day one, that I would start the streak on day one. I wouldn't have to wait as long as I did this year. I have a lot of other streaks. I do really focus on who it is I want to become.
Yeah.
And that if I am going to start a streak, it really will impact who I'm becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that. And so choosing streaks are very powerful. A powerful concept to me is because is how I spend my time and who I will be.
Yeah.
And so I feel like the simpleness of it has made it really powerful for me. So I love it.
Well, Mauree, thank you
so
so much. We certainly appreciate you. And fellow streakers, if you have questions or would like to learn a little bit more, have any questions, reach out to Jamie or I, Jeffrey, Jeffery, at streakingmastery.com.
Or Jamie, Jami, at streakingmastery.com.
And we also have something special coming up on March 31st. We're going to be doing a webcast, and we'll be live on a Zoom link, and you can register for that at streakingmastery.com, where you can ask us any question, and we can share with you what we've learned, and we hope to learn a little bit more about what you've learned.
And talking more about what Mauree has been talking about, too, is that how can streaking help us to truly become who we want to be?
Yep. Well, until next time, we certainly enjoyed the conversation. Mauree, take care, and Jamie, I'll talk with you on the next podcast.
Sounds good.
All right, until then.
Keep streaking.
But it's January 4th, and you're already feeling blue. Go big or go home, they say, but I can show you a simpler way. It's the small and simple things that make the life we live worth living. Among the rush, do one push-up, become a better you. It's the small and simple things that make you grow into what you're hoping